Hey guys, Samu7 here, and piggybacking off what I said in my multiplayer review of CoD World War II, I'm trying to do videos for each update and stuff like that. We got some Gridiron uplink. I'd say Gridiron uplink. We got some Gridiron St. Marie gameplay in the background. It's pretty good gameplay. I have dropped 2 nuclears on St. Marie before. I do not think this is one of the games where that happens. I'll try to get those videos up sometime soon. But yeah, I think this is a different one. I think this is just a good gameplay. But regardless, the gameplay is not what this video is about. As with most of my gameplay videos, it's more about my thoughts on the game and stuff like that. So there's a big update that dropped today. I actually recorded a video yesterday talking about my thoughts on the potential update, and then it decided to drop today. So I was like, well, how about this is what I'm gonna do, because I didn't know there was gonna be competitive changes as well, but it turns out that happened today too. So I thought that I'd make this a 2-part video. This video is gonna be more or less talking about those competitive changes and my thoughts on them. Next video will be more about talking about the global changes to the game, public match changes, and maybe I'll go into a few of my ideas for changes to public matches that I think needs to happen, especially for 2 of my favorite pub match game modes, Gridiron and CTF. So I'll go into that next video. This video, though, going to be talking about the competitive rule set changes, which I wasn't even expecting, but it just happened, so got a lot to talk about here. So I'm just gonna, I don't know how these feel yet. I'm just gonna mention these briefly though, because this is kind of important. Some global changes, like 2 of the biggest ones that this update made, is it nerfed the bar by increasing the recoil, and they nerfed the flinch reduction of primed, but they made no change to the global flinch reduction, and that is a big issue. I'm not happy with that whatsoever. And I made, basically my entire video yesterday was 12 minutes of me ranting about that specific thing. Not going to do that today because I think there's a little set of tweets that actually describes my thoughts pretty well, and it's not going to take 12 minutes to explain, so I'm just going to go into these tweets. Alright, so on your screen you should have a tweet from Fallen FPS. It looks like he's a Twitch streamer. I don't know, I've never really heard of the guy before, but that's what it looked like by looking at his profile. But regardless, doesn't really matter. He tweets Michael Condrey, says, "We legit want less flinch, not more. Why reduce primed and not touch global? Just a bit confused. I love the game, but damn." And that's a pretty good tweet. Like I pretty much just agree with what he said there. It doesn't really make sense to not touch these at the same time, or to, well, we'll get to the other idea first, later. So let's look at Michael Condrey's reply first. So in reply, it's 2-parter. He says, "Global weapon balance is one of the most delicate and complex parts of getting the combat right. It's coming soon, but..." And let's analyze that first part just a little bit first, before we get into the second one. So my issue with this, with what he said here, is that he mentions, for one, he mentions global weapon balance, which is incorrect. Flinch and weapon balance are 2 completely different game mechanics, and they're not related. They're 2 completely different mechanics. So I guess he's just lumping flinch into that group, like flinch is going to affect the weapon balance in a negative way or something like that. In my opinion, I think with every FPS game I've played, it's quite the opposite. Having no flinch is best for the gameplay and the weapon balance. Yeah, I'm just gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna assume that he meant global flinch is one of the most delicate and complex parts, which I don't really agree with, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that that's what he meant. Let's get into the second part. It would have been irresponsible to change both at the same time. It's paramount to give a global stat change time in internal play tests. Now, personally, I don't think it's irresponsible. In fact, I think the most responsible thing that they could do is make it so that primed, its benefit is the extra attachment. There's no flinch effect on primed, and there's no flinch in the game whatsoever. I don't think that's irresponsible. I think that is definitely, like, I don't claim to be a developer, but that's one of the few things that I can say about this game that would 100% affect it in a positive way. I don't see that having any negative effect on the game whatsoever. It's gonna make basic training balance way better, and variety way better, and it's gonna make gunfights way better, more consistent, more enjoyable. It's going to allow you to make more delicate changes to the weapon balance, because you'll have a better feel of how they're actually balanced, whereas now there's so much randomness in the gunfights that it's hard to tell how they're really balanced. So yeah, I just don't really see any negatives to it. But if you're going to keep flinch at all, why not do what JCap says here? Why not lower global flinch first and test it that way? Yeah, he freaking got him. Like, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, JCap pretty much nailed it there. The way that they're doing it right now just does not make sense. And basically what they're deciding to do is, instead of leaving the game in a better state to eventually get it to a great state, you know, for 2 to 3 weeks, and then eventually we'll get that great state. Instead, they're deciding to leave the game in a bad state for 2 to 3 weeks, and then eventually we'll hopefully get to a good state once that next update comes out. It makes no sense. Like in the video that I recorded yesterday, I was talking about I might not even want to play this game, depending on how this update feels for the next 2 to 3 weeks. If I do, I'm going to play zombies, or I'm just going to play one of the other, you know, 6 games I got for Black Friday that all look awesome and all look really fun and really refined since they're older games. Play one of those. I might play, I'm not going to play Halo 5. Halo 5 is doing the same exact issues right now. Maybe I should make a video on that, but yeah, play frickin' Overwatch or something like that. Play some. I'll probably play a lot more BF1 in these next 2 to 3 weeks because they're killing this game. At least for the next 2 to 3 weeks, they're killing this game. So yeah, my little touch on the whole philosophy of the global flinch, pretty much explained right there. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Wasn't this video supposed to be about the competitive rule set, not the global changes? It is about the competitive rule set. It's just that this conversation is very important to my my salient point in the whole competitive discussion. So I thought I'd get that out of the way because I really do think it's very important to my overall message. All right, so let's get on to that. So I'll try to put this on screen for a little bit. I'm just going to go through the changes quickly, and then I'll go into my thoughts afterwards. So new CWL rule set announced. Here we go. Here's the changes. FMJ is banned. Molotovs are banned. Gridiron is gone. CTF, St. Marie is gone. In CTF, they've increased the respawn timer by 2.5 seconds. In Search and Destroy, they completely axed Gibraltar. And in all game types, they've increased the explosive delay. So I'm going to go into my thoughts on these changes, and then I'm going to go into my little hypocrisy point. So FMJ being banned, I can't really complain about that. I think that's a good change. Molotovs is a bit of an interesting one because right now, yes, I do agree that Molotov should be banned. Although, I would not have an issue with Molotovs being allowed if they were a bit higher. I think this applies to the base game as well. I think Molotovs are way too low of a score streak for how powerful they actually are. You know, locking off, I think people underestimate how powerful getting one of those free cheap kills with the Molotovs, if you know where someone's at, is, or by locking off an area for a certain amount of time is with the Molotovs. So both of those abilities extremely, extremely powerful, and I think a little too powerful for a 300-point score streak. Whereas the next score streak, the recon plane, is at 500. That makes no sense. The Molotov's completely out of place. So if they made the Molotov somewhere from 450 to 550 score, then I would actually think it would be okay. I wouldn't have an issue with it, genuinely. I just think the issue with Molotovs right now is that there's way too many of them way too frequently. So I'm kind of in the middle on this change. I think if they changed it in the global game, if they changed that score value, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But right now, banning them is the right choice. Gridiron being removed. Man, this is a tough one. It's hard to tell if this is the right decision because, in my opinion, Gridiron and CTF spawns suck right now. Oh, a little yawn action. I think both of their spawns suck right now. And honestly, I think that at the moment, until this game gets some major spawn updates, I really do think that at the moment, Gridiron is the better game mode. I think CTF has potential to be better, but they really need to do some hard work on the spawns. I think the Gridiron spawns are not as bad as these CTF spawns right now. Still not great, but they're not as bad. I think CTF spawns are really, really bad personally from what I've played and from what I've seen. I've gotten some really, really bad spawns in CTF. I've had really bad spawns happen to me while I'm on a flagpole and stuff like that. And it's just CTF's just not really that much fun right now, to be honest. So personally, honestly, I would have liked to have seen them keep this double game mode going for longer, or shift their priority to fixing spawns, and then we could have decided, because, you know, right now I think this is a bit of a rash decision. So I'm kind of toward the negative side on that change. Saint Marie being removed. This one, well, let's get into the next change. Respawn timer changes to 7.5 seconds. I guess that's a good thing. Overall, that's going to make CTF hella slow. And that's another reason why I support Gridiron. I don't think Gridiron needs as long of a respawn timer. I think it's a lot more fast-paced, a lot more entertaining for playing and for viewing. Gridiron, another bonus to it is I think Gridiron is the easiest game type to understand from a spectator standpoint, whereas, you know, Hardpoint, S&D, stuff like that, that's more for the nerds. You know, a basic, a casual player, a casual person would not understand what's going on in those game modes, whereas they would probably be able to get the gist of Gridiron pretty quickly. It's kind of like Rocket League, you know. I think Rocket League has the potential to be the most viewed esport because of the style that it is. I think it's the easiest for casual people to get into and understand, and I think Gridiron kind of had that. And yeah, CTF definitely does not have the same effect, so just another unfortunate thing about Gridiron being removed, in my opinion. But what I was getting at with that CTF, the Saint Marie being removed, I don't really know how I feel about it, because I feel like that 7.5 respawn timer could have drastically changed the way that map is played. You know, maybe it would be better with that respawn timer, so I'm going to say that those two are negative changes right now, and I'll get, like, again, I have my hypocrisy point, I'll get into that. Still going through the changes in general, though. Search and Destroy Gibraltar being removed. Does that mean that Gibraltar's still in Hardpoint? What the hell, man? Just get rid of Gibraltar. All right, like, if you're gonna get rid of it, just get rid of it. I'm actually gonna give this a half. Like, I'm gonna be neutral towards this change. Reason being, it's only S&D. It's not Hardpoint as well. That's just, that's just ridiculous. You know, if it was both game types, if it was just a straight up Gibraltar removal, then yes, absolutely positive. But because it's just S&D, it's a half measure. Not a big fan. And then there's the explosive delay increase, which is good. Now my hypocrisy point. I think that the reasoning that Michael Condrey had earlier, or well, he's just relaying the information the developers had earlier, you know, with how delicate things are, with not trying to change like too much at once, essentially. I think those guys are being a little hypocritical with these new competitive changes, because they don't want to change global flinch and primed flinch at the same time. But they are completely willing to change FMJ and remove, or sorry, ban FMJ and remove Gibraltar and increase the explosive delay at the same time, which, if you think about it, some of the biggest issues with Gibraltar as a map is FMJ. That's one of the biggest issues, is FMJ just completely kills Gibraltar. Also, the explosive, the grenade spam in general, and how easy grenade spots are in Gibraltar S&D, especially off the rip, also a big issue. These two changes could have drastically changed the way that map plays out. You know, I still don't like Gibraltar, but I'm saying, like, they should have at least tested it after making those changes, because who knows, maybe it's actually a lot better. My point is that you don't really know when you're changing this much stuff at once. So I think the developers had a point with their whole flinch reduction. I think it still didn't make sense. JCap's point was way better. But I think that they did have a point, but they're not listening to their point when it comes to competitive set. And that continues. That continues here. That's not the only case. Another case. Removing Gridiron while increasing the CTF respawn timer to 7.5 seconds. That's a huge change. Who knows how that change is going to have CTF play out, you know? It could completely ruin the way CTF plays and make Gridiron clearly the better game mode, but they're not testing. You know, they're not giving it any tests. They're just making these big changes going right into the first event, which is even worse. I'll probably make an entire video on that. But again, they're just, you know, being hypocritical here. Making two really, really critical changes at the same time. It's just irresponsible. And there's one other one too. There's actually one other example of a faulty methodology here. The other one is that respawn timer change, along with removing Saint Marie. It's kind of the same thing with the FMJ and the grenade change while removing Gibraltar. Who knows how Saint Marie plays with a 7.5 second respawn timer. Maybe it's completely different. Maybe it's way better. Maybe it's the best CTF map in the rotation. But they're not going to do any testing for it. And we're not going to know because they're just getting rid of it while they're increasing the respawn timer. Like, I think they're being really hypocritical here. I think that they're using the wrong methodology for pretty much all the changes that I mentioned in this video. And I am not excited to get on and try this update today. I like pretty much stubbed my toe yesterday. I was planning on getting back into exercise soon. But then I stubbed my toe yesterday and now it frickin' hurts. And I have nothing, you know, I can't be moving around very much today. So maybe, you know, maybe it'd be a perfect day for me to get on and try this new update. On the contrary, I'm not excited for it at all. I think this update's going to be horrible, and I'm actually afraid to get on the game because I think that it's going to kill it for me for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So yeah, point is, competitive changes, very hypocritical with what they're changing in the base game. Well, with their methodology of changing stuff in the base game, I think their methodology with the CWL changes basically says the exact opposite of what they're saying for the base game. I think it's pretty hypocritical, and I think that it's going to have a lot of issues for competitive, especially with competitive going into its first frickin' event next week. Like, dude, what the heck? What? Ugh. But yeah, this is just, I don't know. Sledgehammer's not making sense. This is just not good, and I'm really not excited to make my video on the global changes because I think it gets even worse potentially. But I hope you guys, you know, let me know what you think about the competitive changes, maybe the global changes. The global changes I'm gonna do the video on next video, so preferably put your statements on that in the next video. But if you have any thoughts on what I was saying, maybe your own opinions on these competitive changes, let me know. See you next time.